The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
You're listening to the Sports Scramble Podcast, where four friends serve up a weekly plate of sports with a side of SEC bias. Now, here are your hosts, Chet, Jacob, Wade, and Tyler.
Let's go!
And what is going on, everybody? And as you can see and hear from your voice, it is a different voice. Chet is out there back in Houston doing a little bit of a business trip. So it's your host for this week, Tyler. I'm sure that we will have Chet back. But what a crazy weekend of football it was, both in college football and also in the NFL. We had some upsets both in college football, had a statement Saturday. A lot of ranked versus ranked matchups, so we'll get into it all. But once again, we have one of our couple of co-hosts. Wade just continues to be on here. And then we also have a special guest, Chris. She's also in our fantasy league. We'll get into our fantasy league, see how our teams did, and give you the starts of the week. So how are your boys' weekends?
Very good. I didn't have quite as adventurous of a weekend as Chris did. We'll get to that in a few, but I did catch the LSU game. From up high against Arkansas and watched the Tigers get a victory, and then watched a little bit of NFL yesterday, but got to say I was quite mad to see the Ravens lose to the Colts. It took me out of my office eliminator challenge.
And Chris, how was your weekend?
My weekend was pretty chaotic. A little bit of a travel weekend. I'm sure we'll get into it once you guys bring it up. But traveled to the Pacific Northwest, saw a couple of good games, both college and pro. A little bit hazy coming back at the red eye. Landed in DC at 7:30 this morning.
You couldn't fly back with the Panthers?
Nah, I couldn't. They didn't let me on. So took a quick nap, got some work done, and ready to rock and roll. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely great to have you on. Let's get right into it. We have a full menu of sports to get onto it. We have two NFL games going on right now, the Eagles and the Buccaneers. The Eagles right now are up 13-3 at the half. Last time I checked, the Rams are up 3-0 over the Bengals. And yes, Joey B is playing, but it doesn't look like he's doing too hot. So let's get into our NFL recap. We'll also get into the preview later on, once we get into our top 5 games in both NFL and college football. But let's just rip the Band-Aid off right now. I'm a Saints fan. I just want to get this game out the way, and we can talk about all the other games. It was looking so great, 17-0 going into the fourth quarter. Derek got injured. That was definitely the main story of this game. He's going to be week to week. In the press conference today, Dennis Allen said that he was going to be week to week. It wasn't a severe injury, but it's looking like famous Jameis is going to have his time. Wasn't great, though, on Sunday afternoon against Green Bay Packers. But, hey, you got to give credit to Green Bay and Jordan Love. He was able to put those throws on the money, one to Dobbs, one to Jaden Reed, and the Packers came back, and now they are 2-1 going on to a Thursday night matchup against the Detroit Lions. So, Wade, is it time to panic for the New Orleans Saints? It feels like we have this question every season, especially with a quarterback going down again.
No, it's not time to panic, but I definitely think that this offense is so sluggish. Even when Derek Carr was healthy, I just kept waiting for New Orleans to just take off, and they just haven't. The receiving core is as good as any, probably in the NFC, if Olave and Thomas can play to their true potential. You have the breakout star in Rashid Shaheed, but yet they just seem sluggish for all that speed. So it's not time to panic yet. But Atlanta, they've had their offensive struggles. Carolina actually looks very good offensively at the moment. And the Buccaneers, hey, that's the surprise team. So if I'm the Buccaneers, I got to find a way to win tonight and capitalize on my division rival losing their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that division right now, you got the Panthers who are sitting 0-3. The Saints, had a very prime opportunity to really be that only team to go 3-0, depending on if the Bucs can pull off a comeback tonight out of the Falcons. They fall to 2-1 with their recent loss. But on the other side, Green Bay was out most of the majority of their starters. David Bakhtiari didn't play in this one. Aaron Jones didn't play. They also had Jair Alexander. Chris, tell me about, in the Packers, what this one does for them moving forward. Do you see them taking down the Lions on Thursday night?
I think that's one of the best matchups we've had so far up until this early month of the season. And when you look at the weapons that Jordan Love has, not many people come to mind. No Christian Watson. You got, I believe the top receiver was Romeo Dobbs, who I was kind of had a little bit of a drops issue last year. And guys like Jaden Reed, rookies, Luke Musgrave, they're all coming up and performing. I had put this game in the back burner because Saints were up 17-3, I believe.
17-0.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, 17-0. And
hey, my up 10 early win cashed out.
Fourth, mind you.
So I think this kind of brings up the narrative of is Jordan Love kind of coming into his fruition, and having a great coach like Matt LaFleur really, really helps. Having a great play call. I think I saw a great thing about their game management on how they went for the 2-point conversion because they knew they needed another touchdown afterwards anyways, which maybe we'll get into later. Another AFC West team did not do. So I think this really puts them in a good spot. That division is pretty weak besides the Lions, and maybe if you don't win the division, you'll be good enough to compete for a wild card. And the NFC, that's a little bit more spread out than we thought it was.
Yeah, you definitely make a great point. I mean, the NFC, who knows who's going to win it? It feels like the Eagles and the 49ers are the top of the king, but outside of that, it feels like everyone's just trying to crawl their way into the playoffs. But going back to the Saints side, there is some good news. Alvin Kamara will be coming back with his 3-game suspension. They definitely need that. The running game was pretty much non-existent. Tony Jones Jr. couldn't really get much. You saw spurts of the rookie Keandre Miller, but Saints will try to bounce back. They got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's going to be an insane game. It always is. We had the Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore. There's probably going to be a fight. So, yeah.
The boxing matchup.
So if there's any betting on fights happening, this would be the game. But we'll move on.
Evans in your lineup.
Yeah, we'll move on from that game. The next one was another surprise. How about the Houston Texans absolutely dominating the Jacksonville Jaguars from start to finish, putting up 30 points? I think the Jaguars, to start, are the most disappointing teams. In fantasy terms, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that man needs to wake up. I know that Wade has him on his fantasy team. He can definitely attest to that. But
hey, I got
offense,
Kirko,
yeah.
Captain Kirko.
Yeah, you definitely made the right choice going with Captain Kirk, even with the loss. We'll talk about the Vikings later on. But, man, the Houston Texans, I'm really liking what C.J. Stroud has been doing. I think that this offense is starting to click. The first 2 games they got blown out, looked bad against the Ravens. But I think, the Houston Texans, the way that AFC South is playing out, it's looking like another wide open race. I feel like there's not really one team that's really pulled away so far. You would have thought that the Jaguars would be, the number 1 seed, but last week, against the Chiefs, the offense looked bad and they continued on this. So, Chris, I know that we talked about in last week's show. Do you still see the Jaguars taking the AFC South?
These first 3 weeks are way worse than I expected. I had put the Jaguars up at least a top 3 seed in the AFC, like bubbled and penciled in. It's not a sense of Trevor not having weapons, because he definitely does. But I'm not exactly sure if the defense has been holding up its side of the ball as well, giving up a good chunk of points to the Colts last in their 1 win, and then 37 to the Texans is almost kind of crazy, especially when we came into the season thinking the Texans would be probably a bottom 5, bottom 7 team.
Yeah, I mean, keep an eye on them. I mean, they host Pittsburgh. I mean, I think that it could definitely be a great game. The way that Pittsburgh offense, too, that could definitely be a defensive battle. But Wade, do you think that C.J. Stroud is an early offensive rookie of the year candidate?
Hey, I think C.J. Stroud has all the tools. I didn't watch him a ton in college for whatever reason, so I was a little bit higher on Bryce Young coming out of college. But C.J. Stroud, man, he's got the tools. Ohio State didn't ever let him run. He's even running in the NFL now a little bit, and just very accurate and just looks mature back there. No interceptions. I guess I probably just jinxed him. not to say that there's any panic about Bryce Young quite yet, and I think Anthony Richardson is doing exactly what we expected, but out of the three, I mean, you just got to really like what you're seeing from CJ Stroud if you're the Texans, especially since you gave up draft capital for this upcoming draft to go get his counterpart on defense, Will Anderson. So this team has no incentive to lose, They don't have a draft pick in the top 5 if they are a bottom team. So they're going for it now, and they brought in some veterans, and I think they're going to make a push, kind of like the Bengals did in Joe Burrow's first full year.
Yeah, they're a sneaky young team. I definitely think they can make some noise. You speak of that narrative, Ohio State quarterbacks, they haven't really fared out well. I think that CJ Stroud could be the next one, but one that hasn't done so well is Justin Fields and the Bears. Talk about an absolute blowout. Taylor Swift was there with all the rumors going around of him dating Travis Kelce. You have people all over Swifties trying to grab, hey, can I get Travis Kelce from your fantasy teams? No, you cannot.
At least we'll trade anybody on our team for Travis Kelce.
She will literally trade her kidney, her whole entire team. So if you're listening, if any of you had Travis Kelce out there, at least Wade's wife would like him on her fantasy team. But we're not going to spend too much time on this one. This was pretty expected. This one was over by the half. The Chiefs were up 31-0, 34-0 going into the second half. So Patrick Mahomes got to sit the bench going into the fourth quarter. Blaine Gabbert, he got a drive. He scored a touchdown. So I think that the Bears, really main takeaway, they are just looking like one of the awful teams in the NFL right now. I mean, I thought that Justin Fields was going to be one of the most underrated fantasy quarterbacks. Nope, just the same old typical offense. They can't push it down the field. DJ Moore, that was definitely a nice addition, but I mean, you have a quarterback.
You gotta have a quarterback to use them.
Yeah, you got to be able to have a quarterback to use them. So another team that was in the dumps this week was the Denver Broncos. I think that the state of Colorado was definitely the losers of this weekend, as both either a college team or their NFL professional team got absolutely boat race. But Dolphins hanging 70, and you probably won your fantasy matchups if you had one of these Dolphins, whether that was Tyreek Hill putting up over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, Raheem Mostert having 4 rushing touchdowns. Who would have saw that coming into this weekend? And then Devon Achane having over 200 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 2 rushing touchdowns and also 2 receiving touchdowns. And Tua time is looking like the real deal. He had 29 fantasy points to end. So is it too early, both of you gentlemen, for the Dolphins to be Super Bowl contenders?
They already are. They're there. I mean, they have the best offense in the league right now. I'm still not 100% sold on like Tua being a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. There's other guys I'd like leading this offense, but it's effective. Nobody manages for their set of players better in my eyes than Mike McDaniels at this point. And if you introduce a weapon like A-Chain, I mean, this team just has so much speed. And I know that Krish is fond of a few of these Dolphins. And hey, guys, Jalen Waddle didn't even play in this game, so there's more speed to come.
Krish, what are your thoughts on the Dolphins?
I think it's absolutely incredible how they've kind of just transformed into this offensive juggernaut. That's especially the first 3 weeks, is looking like guaranteed to put up points. And what's also been kind of surprising is this defense has been kind of good. It's been pretty decent. You got veterans like Xavier Howard, Emmanuel Ogbah, Bradley Chubb, and remember, Jalen Ramsey comes back from injury, so this secondary might be locked down for a while. And I think you're going to need that, especially when you're trying to play catch up, because this team's going to score.
Yeah, this team has one of the most potent offenses, and if that defense can play, you talked about Jalen Ramsey coming back. You better.
And I think they'll make some trades
when you can. Yeah, I think that they really had a good offseason. They have some young talent. They have a lot of young talent in the running backs. We saw Mostert, but I think that Devon Achane is going to be their lead back moving forward. But on the other side, I mean, Sean Payton at the start of the season saying that Nathaniel Hackett was the worst coach in Denver. Boy, karma is just eating him alive, and I'm absolutely loving it. He left the Saints. You can go ahead and, with Russell Wilson and cook it up there. But another 0-3 team. I think this is definitely more surprising. It's the Minnesota Vikings. This was the battle of 0-2 versus 0-2. You had the Chargers versus the Vikings. You knew that both offenses would come to play. Justin Herbert had himself a day over 400 yards passing and a couple touchdowns. Keenan Allen. The main story, though, is Mike Williams today out for the year, torn ACL. So if you're a fantasy owner out there, definitely go pick up somebody. Tank Dell from the Houston Texans would be one of my top options
Giving out
to go
free
get.
advice here.
Yeah. Hey, if I'm the host, I'm getting some fantasy. We're going to get a little sprinkles there. But, the Vikings are 0-3. This was just a team a year ago. The first round exit, the New York Giants. They won 11 games. They cruised through the NFC North. Is it time? I'm going to open the floor to both of you. Is it time to let Kirk walk the plank?
When you think about this game, especially before it happened, I think that whichever team lost, you can make a case that their next 3 years could look incredibly different. If the Chargers lost, you got to think about repercussions of Brandon Staley's job on the line. Also, Brandon Staley also trying to throw this game by going for 4th and 1 on their own 20. It seems like deja vu, but it happened again. And now, since the Vikings do lose, you're 0-3. You're clearly the 3rd best team in your division. What gives? Do you try and kind of cut your losses, get some draft capital, and then try and build for the future? Because besides the passing game, everything else is pretty mediocre to bad. The defense, secondary, as you can see, Justin Herbert, 40-for-47, 405 yards. And then the run game, I just don't think Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers are very exciting and explosive. So I think it might be time to kind of see what your options are. I bet Kevin O'Connell's a smart coach, and he'll know what to do next.
I've never seen a team go so quick to reset mode. This is a team that I thought could be the 2nd best team in the NFC this year, behind the Eagles. I liked the quarterback situation better than what I saw in San Francisco. I thought the offensive weapons were there. We knew the defense would be a little soft, but oh my gosh, Justin Herbert, he couldn't have gone and walked it to his receivers any better. It was just, give the guy some credit. He's a great quarterback, but the Vikings definitely made it very easy for him to tear up their defense. So, I think this team has to face reality. Kirk Cousins, he's tired of being the scapegoat. He's going to have a chance to play somewhere else and compete for a Super Bowl at the tail end of his career. And it's a very deep quarterback draft class coming up. So at this point, it's just a matter of how quickly are the Vikings picking, and do they separate ties with Cousins midseason and try to get, a 2nd round pick or something, or do they just kind of let him float off into free agency? But I would imagine this team is going to be sending some scouts to North Carolina, to USC, to South Carolina to, just start looking at some of these quarterbacks because they got to face reality.
So you LSU guys, what happens to the offensive player of the year? That's another big thing you got to think about.
Do you really blow it up, or is he young enough that you think you can get another window with his talent? But he's also due. Jefferson is due for a contract extension. So while he's cheap now, are you going to unload the bank for a guy that can only do so much? He's already doing it all for your team, and you're 0-3.
Yeah. So, the Vikings, they have a lot of answers on the table. They get another 0-3 matchup. Is a team that needs a win here, the Vikings and the Panthers. And we'll get right into the Panthers. And we'll let Chris give this one away as he was right there in the 12th man. Tell me how that environment was.
It was incredible. A little backstory on me. Me and Wade, we knew each other from high school. Grew up in South Carolina. Been a Panthers fan all my life. And been trying to explore different environments and just watch some good games, and was able to go out to Seattle this weekend. And when I tell you it's loud, like loud is an understatement. And it is deafening. The energy is literally bouncing around in the stadium. The stadium's built kind of like that. So like all the noise that's made by these people all kind of goes up and then comes back down. So it's kind of like a cocoon of noise, and
a hawk's nest of noise.
A hawk's nest. Yes, exactly. Amazing because it made me feel really old. It is the 2013 Seattle Super Bowl, the one where they beat up on Peyton Manning by like 30 points. It was their 10th anniversary. So they were honoring that team at halftime.
I got to see the Legion of Boom.
Legion of Boom, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse.
Oh, Doug Baldwin, man, I forgot about him.
Man.
Yeah, some of these guys that we grew up with in middle and high school that don't play anymore, and seeing them live. Michael Bennett, a lot of those guys, they came out, they were signing autographs and stuff for Seattle fans, and it made me really want a Super Bowl so that we can do that in 10 years. But the atmosphere is incredible. I'll also say one of the nicest fan bases I've ever encountered. I've been to a few rowdy places. I went to an Eagles game last year, and it is just night and day. And it just makes that just so much better. But the meanest thing someone told me was I was wearing a blue Bryce Young jersey. Said a probably 60, 70-year-old man was like, "Hey, son, that's the wrong shade of blue here." And I'm like, if that's what you're going to tell me, and that's the heckling, I'll take it. There's not much more you could ask for.
Yeah, it definitely would have been a lot worse. You could have tossed a couple of beers, but no, if you ever get up there, go to the 12th man, that's definitely one of the special environments that you get to. I mean, the state of Washington has some beautiful stadiums. The University of Washington Stadium, Husky Stadium, pretty much the same thing in the Cocoon, one of the loudest stadiums in college football. But we'll wrap up not the college football, the NFL talk with one more game. Another surprise was the Arizona Cardinals taking down the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys were looking like the team to beat. They had a plus 63-point differential. They beat up on two New York teams. The first one, blanked the New York Giants, and then Zach Wilson and the Jets. That's not too really hard to beat that team nowadays. But Cowboys now fall to 2-1. The Dak attack didn't look too good in that one. They fed Tony Pollard a lot in this game. He had another 100 rushing yards in this one. But Joshua Dobbs, I mean, this Dallas Cowboys defense without Trayvon Diggs just looked completely lost. So do you think that Diggs injury, I'll leave this open to the floor, is going to hurt this Dallas defense going forward?
I think it was the shell shock, that he got hurt at practice. I think a lot of the players disagreed with the drill that he got hurt on. It's like a one-on-one man coverage drill. I don't know. That sounds pretty standard to me, but some of the players were griping about it because then the NFL, you simply don't have your ones go on your ones midweek. It's unfortunate, but come on. If this Dallas team is going to contend for championships, you can't even let this game be close. I just think that this team didn't wake up and just got very relaxed on a road game here. And hey, it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, we saw some upsets this weekend with Arizona and Houston winning games, Indianapolis beating the Ravens. So these guys are all professionals. The guys playing for Arizona don't want to lose because that only makes their replacements better in the draft. So yeah, they're going to give it their all, and it's early in the year. Every team's got a little bit of fight in them. So really disappointing here for Dak Prescott, especially. I mean, we keep waiting on this guy to make that leap. To me, he could be a top 10 quarterback, but moments like he had in the fourth quarter, just every time, man, it just makes him look about league average.
I'd also like to think that, preconceived preseason perceptions of teams in college, I think is the absolute worst. But in the NFL, it's a little bit more of a level playing field. At least I had the Cardinals papered down as the bottom of the barrel team. And,
they had themselves in that fashion.
Yeah,
right. And, they stole, or they released their veteran quarterback, and they said, we're going to choose between this rookie or this journeyman in Joshua Dobbs. And 3 weeks in, they are 2 plays away from being 3-0. They lost to the Commanders by 2 points, and then they lost to the comeback of the century, Danny Dimes, in that second half.
That's once a season with Danny Dimes.
Yeah, like that somehow happened. So maybe on paper, this Cardinals team is not very talently deep, but maybe Jonathan Gannon has a good defense in play and is being able to kind of stifle these bigger offenses. Back to your point, Wade, man, the red zone team in general on the Cowboys. I think Mike McDaniel's calling the plays, maybe a little bit of a disconnect to what we've expected in the past couple of years, but having those type of plays be called in the red zone, 3 field goals in the red zone, And then that last play, oh man, that pick in the end zone was just devastating.
There
I
was
think that
nothing
kind of
but red.
yeah, that puts the cherry on the cake for all the Dak doubters, which you got to perform when you're in the NFL in big moments like that. And this is just a letdown.
Yeah, definitely a letdown. I mean, the Cardinals, like you mentioned, they're a couple of wins away. I mean, if this team was 3-0 coming off a victory of Dallas, so we'll see if Arizona can make some noise in that division. But man, Dallas definitely needs this one. They'll host the Patriots. So we'll close the book there on NFL week number 4. Let's get into some quick picks. Let's go into NFL week number 5. We picked top 5 games to pick. So let's start off with the Thursday night game. Lions at Packers. Wade, who you got?
All right, I'm gonna go with the Packers, man. I just think they got the momentum. I like what Jordan Love's doing, and on the quick week, I just I trust the home team in Green Bay.
Chris, who you got?
I agree with you, Wade, and also big point. Aaron Jones tracking to return, get another weapon, a dump off pass here, or guaranteed probably 60 to 100 yards of rushing. Lambeau's a pretty hard place to win at night, so I got the Packers as well.
Yeah, I got the Packers too. I think that I probably would have buried them if they would just lost that game. So I think I expect Aaron Jones to be healthy in this one. I think that this is going to be definitely a battle here in the NFC North. But I'll take the Lambeau Leapers to win this one over the Lions. I think it's going to be a very good game. Next one, it feels like one of the biggest games here in the AFC East. Dolphins at Bills. Chris, who you got?
You got to ride that hot hand. I think the Dolphins will be able to do it. I think that a part of me believes that Tua can take that leap. If he puts up a statement of 75% completion, 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns here, you got to put him in atop that MVP race. And I think the Bills are a little bit liable, a little bit suspect. This past weekend against the Commanders, I think was just an absolute shooting themselves in the foot from Sam Howell for a few times. But the Bills defense will come to play, but I think Tyreek, Devon Achane, as Jalen Waddle comes back, this offense is going to be unstoppable. Probably a shootout, I think. Both teams 30 plus.
Wade?
I'm going to ride the hot hand too. I got to go with the Dolphins. I really like what I've seen out of the Bills since they lost to the Jets, but you got to like what you see out of the Miami Dolphins.
Well, whatever the over is, I think I would definitely feel safe with taking it. These are 2 explosive offenses, but I'm going to go Bills Mafia in this one. I think that this is a team that's not quite ready to give up that division crown. So I'll give the Bills. I think it's going to be like a 35-31 type of game. But I do think that Tua and that offense is definitely on a hot streak. So wouldn't be surprised if they win, but I think that the Bills, with their home fans, I think that they get the job done. And going on now to the AFC North, Ravens at Browns. I'll go ahead and say it. I'm going to take the Browns in this one. This is going to be a defensive battle. I think, Lamar Jackson might turn into an RB1 here, but I don't think it's going to be that Lamar Jackson game that we saw this past couple of days ago against the Colts. I think that this is going to be like a 10-13 type of game, 2 explosive defenses. So I'll take the Browns. Wade, who you got?
I got to go with the Browns too. I'm just salty with the Ravens. They lost my office pool survival pick, and the offense is just putrid, man. I mean, all they do is dump it off to Zay Flowers. So yeah, Deshaun Watson looked a little bit better on Sunday, -1, really bizarre play, but other than that, he did well. And I'm going to take the Browns. I think they get Kareem Hunt more involved this week.
You going with the clean sweep?
We're going clean sweep. I think just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about how this is the best weapons that Lamar's ever had, and we're looking around.
They might be there, but they're not using them,
or
they're hurt.
Flowers, I thought, but
Zay Flowers, and yeah, I agree. I think that Browns defense is suffocating. Myles Garrett, that secondary is pretty good. Denzel Ward, and Jerome Ford admirably fitting in a few times. Amari Cooper with a big game too. I think the Browns will be able to do it. I agree with you, Tyler. Pretty defensive, maybe like a 20-13, 20-17 type game. But yeah, I think that defense is just pretty tough to beat, especially at home.
Yeah, Browns are definitely going to want to slow it down on both sides of the ball. So we'll go on now to the NFC East. This is probably going to be another clean sweep. But the Commanders are 2-1. Not many of us had them getting 2 wins already. Then the Eagles right now they're they're dominating the Buccaneers. So Wade, who you got between the Commanders and Eagles?
I'm going with the Eagles. I think they're rounding into form, and if you wanted to beat them, you should have met them week 1 and 2, and nobody even did it then. So yeah, this team's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eagles. Chris, I'm assuming you're going to go with the Eagles too.
Gonna go with the Eagles. Yeah, it's gonna be a rude welcoming for Sam Howell to go into the link. I'm not exactly sure if those receivers can also get past that good secondary of the Eagles. Front seven, Jalen Hurts. You know the drill. I think Eagles win double digits.
And last but not least, it's the battle of 0-3s. And no, we're not talking about the Bears and the Broncos. We're talking about the Vikings and the Panthers. Not sure if Bryce Young is going to be back or not. Might be Andy Dalton versus Kirk Cousins. Boy, what a quarterback battle that would be. But, Chris, who you got getting their first win of the season, Vikings or Panthers at home?
Unbiasedly, I think the Panthers. And here, I'll let you know. The Adam Thielen Bowl. Never thought we'd see that. But
Adam Thielen getting revenge.
Yeah. Andy Dalton in person looked kind of really good. And I know
think
the
he
Seahawks
could still start.
The Seahawks defense is pretty has some holes, especially some safety at the safety position. But I'd just like to point out Andy Dalton threw the ball 58 times.
Oh
my goodness. I didn't know that.
They're 34 of 58 for 361 and 2 touchdowns. And that's pretty impressive. No matter what, if you're throwing 360 against any NFL defense, it's pretty good. And this secondary against the Vikings, like we saw Justin Herbert exposed, I don't think Andy Dalton's going to be able to do it in the caliber that Justin Herbert did. But I could definitely see DJ Chark getting a deep touchdown, Adam Thielen getting a deep touchdown. The run game is a little bit dicey. Miles Sanders is not the best running back, and especially when you need like that explosive play. But I think it'll be a competitive game. But I do think the Panthers might eke this one out. And I as a Panthers fan, it pains me to say Andy Dalton gives us the best chance to win, especially if Bryce Young is even minusculely gimpy with that ankle. Andy Dalton's able to move around, escape the pocket, make throws that NFL veterans can make, not rookies who are 5'9" can make. So I think the Panthers eke this one out in a close game, maybe by 3 or 5.
Wade, you going for your hometown boys?
Don't pull on the heartstrings here. I'm trying to be unbiased. Look, I agree with Chris. I think it's going to be close. I look for Adam Thielen to have a really good game, but I just can't buy the Vikings going 0-4 unless it's intentional. I mean, if they might huddle up on Tuesday and say, "Hey guys, we're tanking for Caleb Williams," and if they lose on Sunday, they better. But I'm just going to go with the statistics here and say that the Vikings are better than a 1-3 team. So I think they get it done close. But I think the Panthers will get on another run like they did last year late once Bryce Young is fully healthy and kind of figures out the ins and outs of the NFL.
I'm going to go Panthers just because I just trust their defense more than the Vikings. The Vikings
defense does look very good.
Yeah, I think that the Panthers defense, they have a lot of young talent. J.C. Horn's been battling with injury. We'll see if he's back. But I think that this offense, if Andy Dalton, you saw some spurts in that offense. Adam Thielen, revenge factor in this one. I think that he is just motivated to beat his former team. So I think that the Panthers get this one done late, a 21-17 type game.
Tyler, I gotta go against that defense being good, man. Our defense was.
They looked good against the Saints.
Yeah,
porous in that second half against the Seahawks, and
they have
part
a
of
good
it
pass
is
rush.
Pass rush is great. Brian Burns, top 5 pass rusher in the league, top 10 pass rusher in the league. Derek Brown, good run stopper, but Frankie Louvu got injured, who is I think one of the most underrated linebackers in the entire league, as well as J.C. Horn's probably out, and our third string, second string safeties and corners are really, really bad. Really, really bad. So I think this might be a little bit more high scoring than we expect it to be. But I sure hope, man. One can pray, one can hope.
Yeah, I think that if definitely the Vikings lose this game, that there would definitely be a lot of question marks. That's going to do it. Hit for NFL, but let's get into one of our favorite fan segments here, and that is my fantasy football corner. Before we get into our matchups and how our teams did, let's get into some weekly starts and sits of the week. We did pretty good last week. We just continue to keep giving good advice on the show. So let's go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. Entire screen. All right, let's go ahead and do it. Week number 4. And no, this is not a duplicate. Justin Herbert is back here on my list. He had an insane game, 404 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I think that it's just going to get better and better. Justin Herbert, I said in the preseason leading up to this season that, Justin Herbert last season, it was just an off season. I just didn't think that was going to happen. Even without Mike Williams being hurt, they drafted rookie Quinn Johnson. I think that he's just going to step right in. Keenan Allen, he is just being his top target. Austin Eckler has been out. Who knows if he's going to be available? But if you're looking who they're going up against, it's the Las Vegas Raiders defense. And the Raiders defense is a defense that if you have an opposing quarterback, you better be starting him. So I think that Justin Herbert, coming off of a big game, I think that he continues to have these big games, especially at home. Chargers and Raiders, these are teams 1 and 2. I think whoever wins this one is back in that playoff discussion. So I think that Justin Herbert, even without the injury with Mike Williams, I think that this offense with Kellen Moore calling the plays, it's been an explosive offense. So ride with Herbert versus a Raiders defense that's been struggling. All right, let's go on now to the running back start of the week. We're going to go with Kenneth Walker the third. He was absolutely insane this past week. I'd say this past week against the Carolina Panthers defense, like we were just talking about. 18 attempts, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was 30.6 fantasy points if you're playing in PPR. He's projected in week number 4, 15.1. I think that the Seahawks offense, in week number 1, really struggled against Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people are saying, where did this really come from? I thought that the Seahawks were going to be one of those teams that were going to be sneaky in that division. But the Seahawks, we love this matchup going up against the New York Giants offense. And if you looked at the 2 running backs that they just faced, I know Kenneth Walker is not in the same flesh of CMC, but if you look at it, Tony Pollard had 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards. CMC had over 100 yards and got a touchdown. I think that Kenneth Walker, he's definitely going to have his fair share, not only in the rushing game, but also in the receiving department. So going up against the New York Giants defense, the rushing attack has really struggled for the Giants in the first couple of weeks. So I think that Kenneth Walker is due for yet another big game. Let's go on now to the wide receiver start of the week. Wade, I know that I got on your bad side of sitting Rachaad White, but this week I'm on your good side. Devontae Adams.
You were right. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I was right. But 42.2, 13 receptions, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns against a tough Pittsburgh Steelers secondary. If he can do it against the Steelers, he can do it against the Chargers secondary. We've seen them, and they just haven't really been able to have any answers. There's been some injuries. So I think that Devontae Adams, he's just really quarterback prone. Even if Zach Wilson was his quarterback, he would still be going off. So I think that Devontae Adams, you have to trust his elite level talent. Jimmy G is going to him because there's not really many weapons outside of them. Hunter Renfrow, not really. And then also Jacoby Myers has been dealing with a hamstring injury too. So I think that Devontae Adams, I think this is going to be more of a high-scoring game. Once again, Raiders, Chargers, both of these teams really need a win. I think that Devontae Adams, I'm not going to say he gets to 42, but I think that he could definitely get over 100 yards and get a couple of touchdowns to add to his name. So Adams versus the Chargers secondary that's been exposed in the first couple of weeks. I expect Jimmy G in that passing attack to have a very good day. All right, let's get it now to the negatives, get to our quarterback sit of the week, and that is Lamar Jackson. I kind of hinted at this when we were talking about the Browns and the Ravens matchup. I just don't expect many points going into this one. Lamar, we finally saw him get that rushing touchdown. He had 2 on the day, 202 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns. I just don't think that this is a game that you don't really feel comfortable of starting Lamar Jackson. If you have somebody else behind him that you feel comfortable on, that would definitely bench Jackson. But if you don't really have any other options, then you just have to go with him. But going up against a Browns defense that has been one of the best, I think that, Lamar Jackson, he's an elite level talent at quarterback. He's still going to give you that rushing ability. But I just don't think that there's going to be many passing yards to share. So I think that there's not going to be many points, not many touchdowns. So I am benching Lamar Jackson this week against a tough Browns defense. Running back sit of the week. Let's keep this going. Go with another big name, Joe Mixon. Mixon is currently playing right now. Not sure what he's been doing. Whenever this video goes out, you'll probably know if he either lost or won your fantasy matchup. But the Bengals get another tough week going up against the Tennessee Titans. If you have a running back going up against the Tennessee Titans, bench him. I don't care what level of talent that you have at the running back position. The Tennessee Titans are one of the best rushing defenses in the league. Joe Mixon in this Bengals offense has been struggling. If they can continue to do it this tonight against the Los Angeles Rams, I don't expect them to do it against the Tennessee Titans. I expect this one to be a low-scoring game. So Mixon, just put him on the bench for this week and wait for a better matchup in the coming weeks. The next one was a guy that I would never thought that I would have on my sit, but that is Garrett Wilson. Just can't really start him this week. Not only was Zach Wilson just not really being effective through the air. He got 9.8 fantasy points, 5 receptions, 48 yards. That's okay. But where you really drafted him, Garrett Wilson, was a borderline first-round draft pick, a second-round draft pick. So the Jets get another tough matchup. The Kansas City Chiefs secondary has been one of the most underrated forces in the league. The Jaguars struggle to pass. The Bears struggle to pass with them. Really, no offense has had any problems. So I think with Garrett Wilson, with the struggles of Zach Wilson, pair that with a really stout Chiefs secondary, you got to sit Garrett Wilson this week. So that's it. I'll leave up the floor to you if you have any thoughts about the wide receivers, the going from Devontae Adams to Garrett Wilson. What are your thoughts on the starts of the sits heading into week number 4?
You're getting bold on us, Tyler. You're throwing some big names there. You're telling people to sit Joe Mixon, who could be somebody's RB1, but I think you're absolutely on it. You do have to look at matchups, and those sits especially, they're all going up against really not necessarily tough defenses, but tough defensive units. Tennessee, whole different game for T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They're must starts because the Bengals are just going to exploit the passing game in that game, but the running game shouldn't do too well. And a guy like Lamar, it's tough to gauge because he does have that run value. But if they're not going to score more than 2 touchdowns in the game, his value is definitely capped.
Yeah. Great point on that Garrett Wilson pick as well. I think the Chiefs secondary has been kind of lights out. And with Zach Wilson unable to throw the ball 15 yards accurately, I'm not sure where Garrett Wilson's getting any of his points from. Maybe some screen passes or dump offs here and there. But to be able to start him against a vaunted tough area like the Chiefs can put up, I'm not exactly sure. So I like that pick as well.
Yeah, I would not think that I've ever had these big names on the sits, but that's just the matchups. You got to do it. But let's get into how our fantasy teams is doing. Chris, we'll start with yours. I mean, you start off the season 0-2, a lot of injuries, but 208.2. I mean, golly, what an absolute showing. It looks like you're going to cruise with a victory. I mean, Raheem Mostert, we talked about him giving you 45.2. Debo having a nice game. I mean, they're just everybody. There's not really – even your kicker had a dang good game. 24 points. So it's a really good outing. So you're going to be moving to 1 and 2. Your matchup coming up is actually against me. So that will definitely be a challenge for both teams. Wade, let's move on to yours. You have one guy who I told you to sit, but it's looking like you're on your way to starting.
I didn't have a choice, Tyler. I didn't have a choice.
Okay, that's what I said.
My bell cow back went down.
That's okay. But nonetheless, you put in Kirk Cousins. He had a good game. Devontae Adams, 42.2. But whenever you're going up against Tyreek, whenever they put up 70, it just feels like it's an automatic loss. So you will look to bounce back. I'll pull up here, who you play here in week number 4. We'll see if it's a sports scramble matchup. It's not. It's Matty Ice coming off of his bachelor trip, so he might be hungover on that. So, but looking at my team, they're trying to give me a heart attack over here. I only needed like 14 points combined of Chris Godwin and T. Higgins, and T. Higgins has 1.8 and Chris Godwin only has 4.5. So I'm still trailing, hoping to pull away a victory, but my stars, CMC, they continue to reduce. So that's it for the fans.
Hate to be the bearer of bad news, Tyler. There was a 60-yard bomb from Joe Burrow to 45-yard bomb from Joe Burrow to T. Higgins, but T. Higgins just shoves a Ahkello Witherspoon, so it's an offensive pass interference.
Oh, that's great. So, yep, that's what giveth and taketh away in fantasy
Yeah.
football. So that's going to be it for our fantasy football corner. Let's get to who got that dog in him. That dog get him. Let's get it off with Krish. Who's your dog of the week?
My dog of the week is in college football. The Washington State Cougars played the Oregon State Beavers, and Washington State's quarterback, Cam Ward, FCS transfer. Last year was his first year in FBS from Incarnate Word in San Antonio, Texas. And he put up monster numbers, 25 of 34, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns. And he was magnificent, throwing on the run. His top wide receiver was out, Lincoln Victor. So he found 2 new guys in Josh Kelly and what's the other guy's name? Kyle Williams, a 63-yard pass to Kyle Williams as well. Look for the Washington State to make some noise in the Pac-12. I know we kind of look at Oregon, USC, Washington, maybe even Utah, but I think Wazoo could have some firepower, and especially doing it against a great defense, top 10 defense like Oregon State's, to put up over 500 total combined yards is pretty impressive. So, Cam Ward.
Who's your dog?
All right, you already mentioned him earlier in your fantasy corner. I'm going with Devontae Adams. He had a really incredible game. I mean, his route running is just flawless. Had 172 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns against a really good Steelers defense. So, Devontae Adams got that dog in him.
And Neil, you're joining us pretty early here. Welcome to the show. You have a dog of the week?
I do, and I'm going to explain more later on during my segment, but I'm going to leave it here with Hendrick Motorsports with what they accomplished this weekend. They got their 300th win as a team. They've already had the most wins of a team previously, but this just is another big milestone, win number 300.
And I'm going to go with the LSU signal caller, go with Jaden Daniels. Rough start against the Arkansas Razorbacks, but he was able to pull it away. Once again, claiming SEC Offensive Performer of the Week. So Jaden Daniels, he's leading every category in the SEC so far, so he's definitely been dominating. So let's get right now into our college football talk. And, man, this was a heck of a week in college football. We might as well just get into it. I mean, the first game of one of the first games of the weekend was Colorado and Oregon. Everybody was talking about Colorado. You know, Oregon was a 21-point favorite. And what happens? Oregon just absolutely beats the doors off of them, 42-6. Dan Lanning saying that they're fighting for clicks and we're fighting for wins. I love that passion. If Deion's going to be that trash talker, put it right back to him. So, Chris, you had another outing there. You were in Eugene. How was the environment for that one? I mean, those are 2 insane environments you were able to go to this weekend.
Yeah, incredibly lucky. I planned this trip quite in advance, probably in late July or early August. So we kind of did this. Me and my dad did this game as we can get a 2-for-1. Oregon's probably going to beat the crap out of Colorado because Colorado was 1-11 last year, and it's probably not going to be that great. And then Seattle's also just an incredible NFL stadium and environment to just go see. But it was rocking. I can't even put into words into how much confidence I feel like that Oregon team had. Also, the Oregon fans had. And the entire kind of persona of the game was, we are better than you, and we are going to show you how we are better than you in every single phase. And even punting. The Colorado punter was punting 30, 35 yards, and our Oregon punter didn't punt that often, but when he did, 50-yard bomb, pinned inside the 10. So all 3 phases, an absolute beatdown. I think 3 Oregon running backs rushed for more yards than the entire team of Colorado. I believe at the end of the first half, Oregon almost had 400 yards of offense. Colorado had 75. Just the amount of pass rush that D-line was getting. Wade probably knows. Jordan Birch, ex-Carolina Gamecock, transferred over to Oregon.
He's at Oregon now,
and he was creating some havoc. The entire game, though, you guys probably saw on social media as well. the Duck dressing up as Dion. That was
Oh yeah, that was
His
fighting
head
right
coming
there.
off.
yeah, his head coming off. But like when he walked out and he had that baseball bat and it was like a paper mache clock that said prime, and I think you just had to like think about like prime time, and he just kind of beat it with the baseball bat. The crowd went crazy. It was incredible. It was really incredible. The overrated chants were coming down from the student section. It was kind of awesome. It was a great environment to be in.
Yeah, I mean,
and
Dan
I
Lanning
I agree
was
with
an
you.
absolute dog.
If the script was flipped and Dion said, we're gonna fight it on the football field, not in Hollywood, I feel like the media would just be eating it up. It would be no backlash, no nothing. I think that Dan Lanning put his foot on the ground and wanted to show that, Oregon wasn't getting talked about at all in this game. This game was not Oregon's game. This game was Colorado's game to prove themselves, and clearly just outmatched, out-talented, just bigger, stronger, faster, with more willpower. So Ducks got a big one.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a house divided, right? On the left side of the screen, we like Dion a little bit. On the right side of the screen, not so much. NASCAR Neil and Krish are not the biggest Dion guys. Was it good to see him get beat down, NASCAR Neil?
To me, it's not. I don't not like Dion. I just don't like the hype that Colorado's getting as a team.
yeah, I agree with that. It is so overblown.
That program is horrendous, as we saw Saturday, Chris. I didn't get to watch much of it. I walked by a tailgate and they had a TV. I watched maybe 20 minutes of it when I was passing by, but I was happy to see. I actually had a good cell service this weekend. I was checking scores all day, both days, and I saw them like, okay, cool. Yay, they got their ass kicked like they should have. They were not good. But so that's one of my hatred of the hype behind Colorado, not necessarily Dion. I think Dion's a great coach and he's getting the people involved and excited, but that program did not deserve the hype at all. So
no, they get more hype.
Some of the tweets and some of the things that are just coming out of it where like I saw Josina Anderson is a ESPN analyst, and she tweeted out and said, "What's the pregame speech like if Travis Hunter plays?" And it's the same thing. I don't understand.
Yeah, they're going to lose by what? Like 10 less points?
Yeah, whatever it is. Travis Hunter makes a play on offense, the play on defense. Boom, it's 42-21 now. So I'm really, really surprised by I for the most part, I was shell shocked by the amount of positive reviews they got from the Colorado State game, because Colorado State is a bottom 10 FBS team, and Colorado, Deion Sanders has basically picked his team. He's kept 10 people from last year and brought in 60 odd transfers. He's picked his team. He has 5 stars. You should be able to beat a very lowly Mountain West team at home with all this hype. It shouldn't take you heroics to beat like a very bad Colorado State team. So I think that TCU, again, offense probably against worse opponents will be great. The bottom tier of the Pac-12, I don't think will be able to compete against Colorado. Your Arizona States, your Stanfords, but I don't think that the meteoric rise that I think the media was giving them was like there's bound to be an end. And when there's a good team like Oregon in the way, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I knew it was going to come this week. I mean, it's one thing to get all these star players on the offense and defense, but you got absolutely mishandled. Oregon's offensive line, Oregon's defensive line just mismatched. You can't find that in the transfer portal. So Deion's going to have to figure it out, because it only gets challenging. USC and Caleb Williams will be coming to Boulder. So
USC can easily put up 60 points on this team.
Yeah,
like
the way that defense is playing, I definitely wouldn't doubt it. So next big matchup we had was in the ACC, Florida State and Clemson. You just knew that whoever was going to win this one was going to get a step up in the ACC. And Florida State, they survived. It wasn't easy. Clemson, if you heard the story, it was a kicker. He had a job lined up in New York. And Clemson and Dabo called up, "Hey, come back. We actually want you to kick." And then he misses, like a 35-yard field goal. What was a game winner? I think ESPN was just shoving this story down. Like, it was a great story, but I had to hear it 30 times when watching this game. So Jordan Travis, nonetheless, Keon Coleman, he's an absolute dog. He is just without him, I don't know where this Florida State offense would be. But Clemson now 0-2 in an ACC. Do any of you still have Clemson making it to the ACC title game?
I never did.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
You guys,
Yeah, let's get some
Fiery
juice in
take,
here.
fiery
but
take.
you guys also know how much I can't stand Dabo, so I will never
Wow.
believe in
All
them at
right.
all. Like
We
I
got
I
a
think Wade is rubbing off on you too much.
no,
we got a
wait,
full slate of Dabo.
What did
Dabo
we
doubters.
drink in Texas, guys?
no, Wade.
We got
Wade,
y'all
you know
all
this.
on that anti-Dabo juice.
Yeah.
No, Wade. That ever since that game in January 2020, I lost a lot of respect for the dude the way he acted during that game. So
Well, you know, when the going gets tough, Dabo just makes an excuse. He blames it on the intern from New York. And had he won the game, he would have praised them and said that's just the Clemson family. So, yeah, just not Clemson's week. They had the game in the bag. I think that it's time to focus on the basketball powerhouses. You got North Carolina, you got Duke. Florida State, to me, looks like a lock. So I think you're going to see one of those North Carolina teams playing in Charlotte.
Don't forget about Miami now.
And Miami. That's true.
Syracuse is 4-0.
Yeah.
Oh, Syracuse
time.
4.
First time ever since 2013 SEC that 6 teams are 4-0 to start a year going into conference play. So the ACC has 6 undefeated teams, which is kind of mind-boggling because we normally think
Better
of the
than
ACC as like,
hey, the ACC has been dominating the SEC. I mean, the early matchups,
oh yeah,
they've just been cruising over everybody. So I think the big deal is Dabo, whether he likes it or not, he's got to start using NIL and the transfer portal because Florida State was able to revamp their defense and their offense, and Clemson ain't going to be that great if Dabo doesn't use any of that. The recruiting trail, just based alone on that, does not work anymore. It's the modernization of football. You got to poke out money. If you want a 5-star player, here you go. Here's your check. You want a Lamborghini? Here you go. Play for us. If you want a transfer portal, like you can't just like live in the 1960s anymore.
And you can play
Tyler,
with character, right? But you have to go get the guys.
My thing though is if Jonathan Weiss, also any South Carolina listeners, Porter Gowd graduate, Charleston, South Carolina, born and raised. If he makes that field goal, we're not having this conversation, right? We're talking about Clemson got that neck crack game and was able to get their season back in schedule. If they win this game, boom, they're shot up into the top 15. It's crazy how one kick changes your entire season.
But that kick would have been a facade, right? I mean, this team's just not there, like Neil said.
I think Florida State would honestly tie the game. There's like a minute 30 left. That offense would have definitely at least tied it.
I agree, but the idea of having Dabo like not being able to compete is kind of highlighted by Johnny Wilson, Keon Coleman, 2 transfer wide receivers that balled out. So think about if Clemson had one and they balled out, they would have been able to match them up. So I think the ACC is pretty wide open for that second spot.
Yeah, really wide open, especially with Clemson losing to Duke and now to Florida State. That's already 2 losses, and the schedule doesn't get any easier for them. With Duke hosting Notre Dame, if they're able to get that big win, I mean, all the hype's going to be around Duke. And North Carolina, sneaky good win against Pittsburgh and Minnesota. Not really against Minnesota. If you've seen Minnesota, they blew a 31-10 lead against Northwestern, and they ended up losing to Northwestern in overtime. So I think it's going to come probably down between, Miami, Duke, and North Carolina. That Miami-Florida State game. But Florida State they're pretty much done with their gauntlet. They got through September. They steamrolled over LSU. They survived a test in the other Death Valley to Clemson. So I think that schedule is setting up really, really nicely. Florida State, if they take care of business, look for them to be in the college football playoff. Another one that had playoff implications was Ohio State and Notre Dame. And this was an absolute snooze fest at the start. This was 0-0. It took a lot of time, but it was 2 extremely talented defenses. But they were able to get a couple of scores, and Ohio State was able to draw first blood. It saw that, start of it in the second half, it looked like Ohio State was going to cruise away, but Notre Dame was able to get a touchdown with 8 minutes left, and then it was just a defensive battle. Then McCord and that offense was able to get a couple of plays. Marvin Harrison looked like a scary injury that he was going to be out for the game, but he ended up coming back in, and they were able to sneak it in for your 1-yard touchdown. And if you read the news going into the game, Lou Holtz was on the Pat McAfee show saying that Notre Dame is so much better of a football team than Ohio State. And then Ryan Day, after the post game, was yelling at this reporter. I feel bad about this reporter. She was just doing his job. Ryan Day screaming for the meantime, "It's Ohio versus everybody. Lou Holtz, I want your head right now." So Oh my gosh, there's like so much antics going on.
I've never seen a top 10 team be so doubted, Like, come
Yeah,
on,
I
man.
mean,
You're
we
still
played
very
one bad
respected.
Who is he,
half.
Dabo?
Like we played
No,
one bad
Ryan
half.
Day.
I really want to
No,
know
I'm making
what
a
was that
joke.
one
Oh,
bad
yeah.
half? What was that one bad half? Because there's definitely been way more bad halves. I mean, this team has struggled against Youngstown State to start. They can't beat Michigan the past 2 years. And Georgia, they had that's probably what the game that he's talking about. But I mean, it's not my fault that your kicker can't make a game-winning field goal. So I don't know what to expect from this game. Ohio State in the Big Ten, they still haven't really impressed me, even with this win. Notre Dame, if they can take care of business this weekend against Duke, they do face USC in a couple of weeks at home. Is Notre Dame with this loss, do y'all think that they can still have a path to the college football playoff?
Very hard one, but obviously if they were to go 11-1, I think you'd have to consider them, with the close loss against Ohio State. But I think this is a sign of what's to come for Notre Dame. I think they're a good football team, but I do think they're just a touch behind USC, some of these other teams on the schedule. I think they'll be able to contend with Duke, but I do see Southern Cal beating Notre Dame here in a few weeks.
Also, sneaky game in between Duke and USC at Louisville, undefeated Louisville. So keep an eye on that.
Very tough road.
I got a sneaky, a little hot take, if you might say.
Go for it.
First time I'm kind of piecing it together into a cohesive conversation. So I kind of agree with Ryan Day. I think the media, not the Lou Holtz stuff is childish. Like Ryan Day asked, "Where's Lou Holtz?" It's 4 hours past Lou Holtz's bedtime. He's asleep. So
all Lou Holtz does is eat, breathe, sleep Notre Dame football. So I can't really.
Yeah, so that's okay. He's a Notre Dame. He's a Notre Dame super fan.
He's 89 years old. That's all he cares about is Notre Dame.
Right?
What they do.
But part of me kind of sees where he's coming from. So I'll put this for you. Kyle McCord, brand new guy, not having many reps last year against a Heisman finalist, currently doing a great in the NFL, QB and CJ Stroud. Kyle McCord's an unknown. Is brand new guy. And Youngstown State struggled, yes, and then kind of got that game right against Western Kentucky in week 3. But if Ohio State was tied 10-10 with Wyoming entering the fourth quarter, which Texas was, by the way, we would be hearing it forever. If Kyle McCord threw 3 picks in the first half against Bowling Green, which J.J. McCarthy of Michigan did, by the way, we would be hearing it forever. I kind of get where he's coming from. I mean, Ohio State has been a perennial playoff team for the past 5 years. Yes, they can't get over the big hump. They lose to teams that are better matched and better coached. Ryan Day has lost 2 regular season games against the same team, I know, in his past 3 years or something. It's kind of impressive. It is, and it kind of has been Ohio against the world. Besides Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Buka, Travion Henderson, who else is really on this team? We don't really know any of these defensive stars. Kyle McCord was an unknown. They lost a couple of O-linemen. I'm very impressed with them being able to go into Notre Dame and beat them the way they did. Notre Dame's defense was always going to be really good. And Sam Hartman, I thought, was the much better quarterback than Kyle McCord. And if you kind of look at how they both performed throughout the game, Kyle McCord came up clutch. That pass to get them to first and goal at the 1 was unbelievable. It's such a tight window. I think Kyle McCord's pretty good. I'm not exactly sure yet, but in the sense of this entire game, I think Ryan Day has a point, and I think Ohio State has the better win over a much better team, and I think they, in all honesty, should be ranked over Michigan. I'm a big Michigan hater, especially starting out the season, but I can kind of see where he's coming from. Besides the Lou Holtz thing, that's just a crapshoot. I don't understand.
Something I do want to add. Hey, you mentioned CJ Stroud. Like, this is the first really unproven quarterback that Ryan Day's had since he's been at Ohio State, because he had Justin Fields, and then now Stroud. Like he's had guys that were Heisman finalists before, and this is the first time he's really had somebody young to do, and it's like
he's 19 years
and,
old. Like,
you know,
I mean,
and
it's
I was a few
pretty
weeks
impressive.
ago. I was like, all right, is Ohio State really? This is the first time they haven't had a quarterback. I was like, looking, I'm like, oh, are they really only good because they have these top quarterbacks? But now, I'm kind of leaning towards how you're saying now. You know, with this guy's just young and he needs the time to get better. Like, you know, give him another year and he'll be just as good as the rest of them. They'll be there. But I'm also an Ohio State hater though too. So it's like I lean the.
So we have a Michigan and Ohio State hater. All right.
You're
Well,
letting the biases fly.
it was good to know
That-
you Buckeye and Wolverine fans. So
Hey, I just
salute you for
love
watching
the
this show.
fans.
I am a Michigan doubter for the first 4 weeks of the season. Let me rephrase. You've
Okay.
played UNLV, ECU, Bowling Green,
I
and
agree with
others.
that.
And
Well,
haven't
the
covered in
weeks,
any of them. So
Yeah.
Them and Georgia need to start playing somebody. But other games of note this week, Penn State looking like a team. I picked Penn State to make it to the college football playoff and win the Big Ten. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Who knows who won the Big Ten West because that is looking like an absolute dumpster fire. My pick is still Wisconsin, but who knows? Penn State blanks Iowa 31-0 in the Iowa game, in the whiteout game. Another note, LSU survives against Arkansas 34-31. If you want more in-depth, we recorded SEC Talk yesterday. Bayou Bengal Bites will go out. Wade, do you have any more thoughts on the LSU performance against Arkansas since you were at the game?
I'm going to save it for Bayou Bengal Bites. I'm excited to make my debut. Chet must be working real hard this week, man. I'm getting a fill in for him on that.
Working books.
But yeah, no, LSU, not quite the intensity I wanted to see them come out with. I think this team's just up and down. I think LSU, yeah, I mean, I just think they are what they are. I think that LSU is a top 15 team. I think they can hang with just about anybody. I think they can lose to not just about anybody, but I think they can lose to, you know, the teams you'd expect to beat them. And, you know, maybe they'll pull off an upset against Alabama or Ole Miss and get a chance to play in Atlanta. But I think this team's not quite in that championship contender mentality for me yet. They just don't look dialed in. But some good young pieces on defense, on the pass rush that's coming along each week. And I think the running game is starting to piece together. So who knows? This team could make a run.
Yeah, what did you see this past Saturday for LSU against the Hogs?
I watched the first half from a Chick-fil-A waiting on my Uber ride home.
Well,
but from what I did see, no, I didn't.
Yeah, you watched a bunch of incompletions, man.
And then I got home and proceeded to almost pass out twice. So, but what I did see, it was a typical LSU Arkansas game. I was there last year on the road.
Yep, you were.
I was like, these games drive me crazy. They drove me crazy when we were there because they were still close then, except 19. That was the one exception, you know. So like that was the game. I'm always like, okay, we could win this, we could lose this, and I almost don't want to watch it because it's just too scary, too much of a heartbreak watching it. So I'm like, next year I'm probably gonna make a pass on watching it.
It is always very close.
That 17.5 spread was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
Arkansas could be 0-12, and this game still comes down to the field goals. So never bet that big of a spread again on this game, especially in a rivalry game for a trophy. Another game of note: Alabama pulling away against Ole Miss. I think a lot of people bought too much into this Ole Miss hype against Alabama. You just knew that Alabama wasn't going to drop and lay down dead. I know that they didn't look too great against South Florida, but Jalen Milroe gave that offense a spark. So that's going to be it for our week 4 talk. Let's get now into our picks. First, we'll get into our top 5 games to pick. We'll get into our upset picks. Then we'll end out the show with building that bankroll, and then we'll get the latest news in the NASCAR landscape. So a lot of good matchups. Once again, we have a lot of ranked versus ranked. First, on Friday night, we have a Pac-12 slate. I mean, the Pac-12, this is their last year, and they're giving us the best games of the year. So number 10, Utah. We'll see if Cam Rising plays or not. That's been the story of every week for this team, but they just keep on winning. And they're traveling to number 19, Oregon State. Oregon State coming off of a 38-35 loss against Wazoo. So, Wade, let's start off with you. You got the Utes or the Beavers?
I got Utah winning this game, just a veteran bunch. Oregon State did not impress me last week. The defense looks suspect.
Chris, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with the Beavers. I will say going with the Beavers if Cam Rising does not play, which I don't think he's supposed to. We'll find out later this week. I think it's going to be a little bit like that Utah-UCLA game, kind of that slugfest where a defensive touchdown might win it. a 20-17, 21-14 type game. Oregon State's defense is good. I do think they are very good. I think Wazoo's offense is just astronomically, top 10 in the country. But Utah's offense is a little lacking, so I'm going to go Oregon State in a close, low-scoring game.
Neil?
I'm going to go Utah. Like I don't know much about Oregon State really to judge. I think Utah has been saving their quarterback for a big game. I figured he was going to play last week, but he didn't. I was like, So I feel like if he's going to play this year, it's going to be this week at this point. But yeah,
well, we got a tie. I'm going with the Beavers, baby. I think that Utah slips up here. I don't know when Cam Rising's going to come back, but even if he does play, I think that this is going to be a defensive battle again. And Utah is a different team to play on the road. I think that in Corvallis, if this was in Utah, I would be picking Utah, but I think that coming off of loss, they're going to be pissed off. Oregon State is one to get, and then look out for Dave Martinez, that running back. I think is going to have a big game against that Utah defense. So I don't think that Jonathan Smith's squad is going to lose back-to-back games. They're one of my dark horse teams going into this season. I think even with the loss to Wazoo, they're now out of the Pac-12 race. So we're split on that game. We'll see if we're split on the next SEC showdown, number 13 LSU. Go on the road to Oxford to play Ole Miss in the Magnolia Bowl. Chris, we'll start off with you.
I feel that if I go with the Rebs, I might get some hatred from my other co-hosts. But
no,
watch
SEC talk and you'll see.
No, I think that Jalen Daniels comes to play. I do agree with you in that past segment with Alabama. I think we're buying a little bit too much in this Ole Miss hype. Best win is at Tulane with the backup quarterback and backup wide receiver, banged up defense. I'm not so sure how good Ole Miss is as a whole. I think Jackson Dart's very good. I think Jackson Dart is a very competent, capable quarterback with some good weapons. But I think LSU, just that offense is just going to be able to get the better of them. I think Gabe Neighbors might have a big game again, and I'll go with the Tigers.
Neil, you rolling with the Tigers?
Always, especially against Ole Miss. But, and the thing is, we are a 3-point favorite on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of says something that yes, Ole Miss has got a lot of hype, and they probably have better wins than we do so far this year with being ranked Tulane. But I think we're going to go to Oxford and take our business and bring that huge ass trophy back with us.
Wade, I know you picked Ole Miss on last night's show, but are you picking them on tonight's?
I gotta hide the shirt for this pick. You know what? I'm gonna beat the jinx, and I'm gonna stick with Ole Miss.
I could be picking Ole Miss.
I know, but you didn't on the other show. So, look, this is a game I circled a while ago, and yeah, I think Ole Miss did get exposed on Saturday. The offense didn't look nearly as explosive, but this is a tough game for LSU, and like we talked about, kind of the up and down nature. I don't think you can get off to a slow start in this game because I think Ole Miss will get off to a fast one. I think the inexperience will hurt the Tigers in this one. I could see a late error, not by Jaden Daniels, but maybe like a defensive penalty, like a roughing the passer or something like that. So I think this is going to be a heartbreaker for LSU, but don't worry, Tiger fans. I got some wins in store. I think that if they lose this one, they go on an absolute tear and beat Alabama later in the year. But got to stick with my guns and go Ole Miss.
Well, yeah, last time LSU took the trip to Oxford, that game was over by the half. It was not pretty. So I am going to go with LSU, but I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. Two suspect secondaries with the quarterbacks. I think that Jackson Dart, coming off of that embarrassing performance against Alabama, he's going to want to right the ship. So I think it's like a 38-35 type of game. It might be even the race to 40. Whoever gets first to 40 wins this game. But I think I am going to go with LSU. I think it's not going to be a pretty game, but a win's going to be a win for LSU. The next one is another top 25 matchup in the Big 12. Number 24, Kansas, baby. Jalen Daniels and that Kansas Jayhawk offense coming off an impressive performance against BYU. They had to travel to Austin to face off against number 3 Texas. Wade, do you have the Jayhawks pulling off a massive upset here?
Hey, they've done it in the past, but I actually am buying into this Texas team at this point. Not as a championship contender, but I do think they're the cream of the crop in the Big 12 so far. So I'm going to stick with Texas in this one. I think this one will be a little bit lower scoring than people are thinking, and I think it will be close. But give me the Longhorns by about 7.
Neil, who are you rocking with?
I'm going to go with Kansas. I think that game's always wild. It's always funny to watch Kansas beat Texas and rip Texas fans' souls from them when they think they're good. So I think that trend's going to continue in the last year they play each other, because I know Texas fans are so thrilled to never have to play them again unless they choose so on their own willingness, which I doubt they ever will. So they're happy.
Chris, are you going to agree with Neil or are you going to agree with Wade?
I'm going with Wade. Baylor alum, as a Baylor alum, watched that Texas game, and it was so depressing.
Yep.
I don't know if Baylor's just really, really bad, which they might be, like capital B bad, or Texas is capital G good. I think both are kind of true. I think Kansas will give them a fight. They're always feisty. They got that weird triple option-y pistol, shotgun, two quarterbacks throw into back to them, quarterback draw, whatever you want to call it. And I think that it'll be kind of cool, kind of close. But I think Sark's got this team in the right direction. And next, they better not look ahead though until Red River, which is the week after. Good spot to look ahead. It could be a little trap game, but I agree with Wade. Maybe a little closer and low scoring, but Texas gets it done.
Man, my heart wants to go Kansas, but I'll be a smart man. I'll pick Texas. I just think, in the defenses here, I think that this could also be a high-scoring shootout. I feel like last time we saw this was a double overtime games, like 52-51, and Kansas pulled off the 2-point conversion to win that game. I don't know if it's going to get to that margin, but Texas, they have been vulnerable. They look really good against Baylor, but past couple of weeks, they beat Bama. We don't know how elite Bama is. Are they good or are they elite? Who knows? But then they struggle, like you mentioned. They were 10-10 going into the fourth quarter against a very solid Wyoming team. I think Wyoming is a team to watch out for in the Mountain West. But nonetheless, I will go with Texas. Another one, we go to Independent versus ACC, but this should just be an ACC conference matchup. Notre Dame, please just join the conference. Number 11, Notre Dame at number 17, Duke. I'll go ahead and start this one off. I think Duke gets it done. I think that this is a team that I've been high on going into the ACC. Mike Elko and that defense is going to play. I think this is going to be another defensive battle. Sam Hartman, I think, is going to have some troubles, but I respect Riley Leonard and his arm. I think that Duke gets another big victory. So, Wade, you're going to go with the Fighting Irish? You go with the Blue Devils?
You just swayed my opinion. I thought this game was in South Bend this whole time. It is in Duke, and I watched Duke take care of Clemson at home. I know that Clemson's not as good as Notre Dame, but yeah, I'm going to take Duke in this one.
Chris?
I'll stick to knowing what I know, and I know that Sam Hartman is a very good quarterback. So I'll go with the quarterback matchup. Sam Hartman just a little bit better than Riley Leonard. I think Duke has a little experience here and there. The Clemson game, you could make a case, was kind of fluky. A couple of goal line fumbles and missed field goals, but I think Notre Dame gets it done. Very low scoring. But that rushing attack, Audric Estime, is just really good. And I don't think Duke will have the firepower against that Notre Dame defense.
Neil?
I'm going with Duke. I think Jordan Waters is the real deal on Duke's running back. He's done himself so far this year of dominating this year. So I'm kind of leaning towards Duke on this game.
I'm just glad that one of us picked Notre Dame because I did not want all four of us picking Duke, and that would just look really bad. But the next one we'll go to is I just put it on here because I think that the whole nation's still going to be talking about Colorado. But we have number 5 USC traveling to Boulder, big noon kickoff. Once again, this is like their 3rd out of 4 times. They took a week off to go to Oklahoma, Cincinnati. Whoopie freaking do. That was a 20-6 game. What a game that was to go to. But Chris, who you got between USC and Colorado?
USC, Caleb Williams is going to have a field day, to put it nicely. I think that offense is electric. Though they were kind of shaky against Arizona State late at night, couple of bumps here and there, but I feel that USC is just going to absolutely boat race. Also, a 10 a.m. local kickoff. Never heard of that before.
Hey, it's going to be very commonplace once these conferences expand.
Yep.
Yeah, but at least with
LSU had a 10:31 a couple years ago, I think, Wade.
Against Florida in the makeup game.
Yeah, that was my like second year, first year on Saturday. I just remember having to show up for work at 6 a.m. or something like that. I'm like, it was miserable. I want to say I even slept in the stadium that night because it was such an early arrival.
Is any of you picking Colorado, or we can just move on with this game?
Stat pattern for Williams.
Yeah. probably going to be the Heisman one. But we'll continue our college football talk. Let's get into the teams who need to be on upset alert. All right, upset alert picks. Wait, let's start review.
All right. Well, hey, I'm not going to keep hating on LSU on this show, so I'll give you a second upset pick. I'm going to take that Duke game we just talked about. I think Duke knocks off the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This would have had more appeal had Notre Dame taken down Ohio State, but still an upset. I'm going to take I'm going to take Duke over Notre Dame. Tyler, you're on mute.
Yeah. I don't know why it does this. Oh, my God.
There you go. Oh.
Hit us, Chris.
Yeah.
It's me? All right. Yeah. I'll go for the home state, South Carolina Gamecocks at Tennessee.
You took mine from me, Chris. I was gonna hit that one.
My bad.
No, you're fine. That was. But go
I
ahead.
think Spencer Rattler is capital G good, and Xavier Legette is capital G great. And Tennessee has been, I don't know, I haven't seen enough from them to be like, man, Joe Milton's the real deal. They beat a banged up UTSA team. Austin Peay lost a game to a pretty flat Florida team, in my opinion. So I think South Carolina gets it done under the lights. You know what happened last year? I don't think it'll be that crazy, but I do think South Carolina in a close one. But over Tennessee and Neyland.
Well, Neil, you're going to take in. Do you have a backup?
I do have a backup, and I don't know. Technically, Kentucky's favored over Florida.
It counts.
Florida is the ranked, but Florida is the ranked team. I think Kentucky gets it done.
Yeah, I agree with that. We talked about that on SEC
really,
Talk.
Yeah.
I think Kentucky's
really
pretty good.
But
are we all in consensus on that one?
Yeah, I think Kentucky takes it outright.
Even Chet picked him, so yeah, we're all rocking with Kentucky. My upset, Wade took mine, but I always come with a backup. I'm going to go with the Beavers over Utah. Oregon State is a 3-point favorite, but Utah is a top 10 team. I think this causes yet another shakeup in the Pac-12. All right, let's get into building that bankroll and let our viewers try and get some more extra coin in that wallet.
It's time for building that bankroll.
All right. Cha-ching is.
Something's up with these videos, man.
I know. I'm very laggy over here, so it's like very delayed and it's like muting my mic. But let's go ahead and build that bankroll. Wade, let's start off with the NFL picks. We went 2 out of 3 on both college football and NFL. Let's see if we can continue that hot streak. So, Wade, who you have as your best bet for NFL?
Well, when you get 4 talking heads on here, we tend to steal each other's picks. NFL games are very tight, so it's bound to happen again. But I'm going to take the over in that Miami and Buffalo game. I just think that even at 53 points, I think it's definitely feasible. You know, both teams should get into the 30s, and I think easily clear it.
Chris, who you got?
So I'm going to go for a spread. The spread for the Sunday night game is Chiefs at Jets in the Netherlands, and the Chiefs are favored by 9.5. I think it's clearly a 2-possession game by any stretch of the imagination. You know, Taylor's probably going to be there, so that means Travis is going to get.
Shoot, in the New York penthouse, it's going to take it to a next level.
The next level. And I just don't see, like we talked about with that Garrett Wilson sit pick, I don't see where the Jets score any points. Jets defense is really good. Secondary is good. Front seven's good. But you got to score points, and the defense doesn't score points. So I think Pat Mahomes wins by 14+.
Yeah, I'm going to go with another spread one pick here. I think that the Browns can cover the 2.5. I think that this is going to be a defensive battle. It's probably going to be a field goal game. The Browns will probably either win this one by 3 or 4 points. I'm going to trust that defense to shut down Lamar Jackson. So take the Browns minus 2.5. Neil, what is your pick for building that bankroll for the NFL?
I honestly wasn't expecting to do this, and I don't bet on normal sports, so I'm not the person to ask. And I'm really not the person to ask anyways.
Disclaimer.
No,
So don't bet with NASCAR Neil. So keep that in
No, I
mind.
lost a bunch of money this weekend, so I'm not really happy with myself right now.
Don't bet with
Okay.
NASCAR Neil.
All
Yeah,
right.
fade
So
me every time.
well, we will kindly skip over you, and we will go right into the college football best bets. Chris, so why don't you start us off?
So imagine this scene: prime time, NBC, 7:30. We got Michigan State at Iowa.
Oh, geez.
Now,
Ooh.
the line is Iowa by 11 and a half. So that means that Iowa has to score at least 12 points. And I'm not sure if that happens. So I'm going to go for whatever combo you want to take, either the under, which is 36 and a half, which means both teams have to score 18. And we saw Iowa's performance against Penn State was rotten. So you can either take Michigan State to cover, because 12 points is quite a bit. And even though Michigan State's pretty bad, I don't think Iowa's offense is that much better. Or take the under 36 and a half, because no way both teams score 18 points.
Wait, what's your best bet for college football this weekend?
All right, NASCAR Neil highlighted this one for us. I'm going to take Kentucky to cover 3.5 at home. That's a little bit risky, considering it's a bit of an upset pick, and it's that pesky 3.5. But I think the Wildcats win this one by a touchdown. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff, I guess 12 local time. But Kentucky's quietly 4-0, and they got eased into SEC play last week against Vanderbilt. And Florida, that's just another team that's up and down to me. The offense is just not that great. And I think if Kentucky can seize the momentum, they could really run away with this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go for money line. This team is favored by 3, so I definitely would feel comfortable, but I am just going to go with this team to win outright. That's the James Madison Dukes. They are definitely the talk of the town in the Sun Belt, going up against the South Alabama team, coming off of a rough loss at home against Central Michigan. South Alabama was a 14.5 favorite in that one. They looked good at the start, and then Central Michigan just chipped away. No pun intended, that loss. So I think that South Alabama is just a tough team to gauge. I thought that they're going to be one of the best in the Sun Belt, but I think that the way that James Madison has been rolling, especially at home, take the Dukes to win outright. So that is our best bets, building that bankroll. I'm sure Chet will put up a graphic leading up to these games, and hopefully we can continue on for a hot streak. All right, that's enough sports talk. Neil, take it away with what's been going on in the NASCAR landscape.
Hey guys, I just spent the very hot and miserable weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. And by hot, it was Saturday, I think it hit 95. Sunday, it hit 101. And we're sitting in metal bleachers in the middle of the sun, surrounded by concrete. So
you're crazy,
it was
Neil.
a very hot day. It was a very hot day. But
did you stay hydrated, though?
Oh, I'm sure he drank tons of water.
Lots of beer. Lots of beer. The beauty of this track
Liquid
is you can bring
is
your own
liquid.
cooler in. The beauty of the track is you can bring your own cooler in. I brought a lot of beer. I did bring water, which Wade and them that know me will be surprised. I actually brought water and drank water and not Dr. Pepper, which is a big
That's
statement
good.
for me.
That's a good change there, Neil.
That you guys know me, but still lots of beer. It was one of those things. Saturday, usually you only get me for the Sunday coverage, but I was there both days. Saturday was a Xfinity race. It was fun. I'm pulling my notes up again. It was a pretty good weekend, There was a wreck on lap 2, which because this is like the AAA equivalent to baseball. It's the level right below Cup, but there's a lot of people who are not very good. Wreck on lap 2. Then we had another scary wreck that was reminiscent of the last race I was at, where a car coming off of the tri-oval went and hit the pit wall and hit the very first pit box. And this was around the time of pit cycles happening.
Oh, wow.
And I was actually listening to the leader's radio when it hit their pit box, and he somehow saw it from across the track and asked if his guys were okay because he saw them working in that area when he was going around. And they go, no, they're fine. There was at the stage 2-3 break. We had another bad wreck. The driver lost a wheel, in 3 and 4, which was tight. And it's something that was a trend for Sunday too, surprisingly enough. But then another driver, surprisingly enough, had his AC break during the middle of the race.
Really?
Which, yeah, and he had to get out of the car and put a sub driver in because he was so heat exhausted. Because you think about it, if it's 95 in the stands, you're in a car with not really air flowing through it, it's double the heat. And they do have these fancy cooling suits that pump cold water through them to cool them off, but it was still bad. Another wild kind of experience that I thought was kind of cool. As Wade and Tyler know, I bought a radio to listen in to the in-car communications this week for going forward. And a wreck happened in 3 and 4 that involved a driver I was listening to where car below him in the low line got loose and the arrow got him loose and he crashed in the wall. And the entire time he was just as calm as a cucumber. And I'm like, you just got in a wreck and slammed a wall at over 100 miles per hour and you're not really
Part of the
saying
game,
anything.
baby.
And I was listening to a spotter.
game.
We were just saying, hey, you're the wall, stay high, don't try to go low kind of thing. I was like, this is just insane that you just slammed the wall like that. Your rear end did it, and he took some damage. It was kind of crazy.
But how cool for you to just be, able to be in the moment like that.
Oh, yeah.
Not something that a lot of other sports give you the opportunity to do live. We see recordings, but not in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's one of those things and it happened in 3 and 4, which I was sitting on the 3 and 4 side of the front stretch, and I looked up and because it was towards the front of the pack kind of, and I looked up and I saw the 19 get loose, and I'm like, I just saw him start getting sideways. As a guy, I watch enough racing, I know when a car's getting loose in a turn. I'm like, it's back and it starts sliding around more. I'm like, and then next thing I know, the eight got wrecked. I'm like, how did he do it? And then I flipped over to the radio broadcast and they were talking about how the air got him off of him. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. That explains why he got wrecked. And I was pissed off in the moment. I'm like, why did my guy get wrecked here? I'm like, doing, a lot of cautions on the back end as well after a lot on the front end. This set a record for the most cautions in the series in like years. So that kind of shows how the day went.
Sloppy day on the track.
Mm-hmm.
It's a series. They're known for wrecking it. It turns into a shit show at times. But it was at the end of on a late race restart, John Hunter Nemechek ends up getting the win from third place after Parker Klingerman, who was in third, made a move on just knocked out the leader who was up front all day, had a good car, kind of fell back, but Klingerman made a move on him, and John Hunter came in from third and just took advantage of the move where the air got loose and took the lead and managed to win. It was kind of a cool thing to happen. It kind of happened in going into the backstretch, but Texas has a giant video board. I think they claim it's the largest in the U.S. for an outdoor stadium. It's a giant TV series. It's pretty cool.
I think we need to see like Texas and Texas A&M play at the Texas Motor Speedway, like the first SEC game back.
Yeah,
I think they could fill it in.
Talk about marketing genius right there.
I think that Tennessee played Virginia Tech at Bristol a couple years ago, which is cool.
But imagine the two big Texas brands.
Yeah, that would.
It'd just be hard to do because the front stretch isn't quite big enough to do it. It'd be tricky to do, but I do think it'd be kind of cool. Sunday's race was nice. I got there. I actually drove Sunday because I was like, I don't want to look around my cooler all day. So
you weren't going to have 10 beers?
It was like, I was like, I'm going to drink less and I'm going to not carry this cooler around all day because it weighed 28 pounds when I weighed it before I left the house, which that's kind of heavy carrying around the heat all day. But it was a good time. I walked the fan zone. I was kind of impressed. This is my third time at the track, and the fan zone was probably the biggest I've seen in those 3 races, which is nice to see that more brands and sponsors are getting involved and activating on trackside, which as you guys probably don't know if you've ever been to a race, like outside the track, the sponsors of the events on the cars, they set up booths all around the track. And the teams have merchandise you can go buy. And I bought a new koozie this weekend that I was looking for at Nashville a couple weeks ago, but yeah, it was kind of cool to see that many brands and some brands I hadn't actually seen before at the track. Another one I was not expecting to see, which is Winston Tobacco, which was the title sponsor for a long time until it became illegal to do so. I was like, I did not expect to see them here today, but I'm here for it because it's the old school of the sport. But it was cool. It was a cool time.
Yeah, Sports Scramble just on a stadium tour. Wade's.
We need to get in on the action.
Home game. Chris is going out there in Pacific Northwest, going to the 12th man. Eugene and Neil going to the NASCAR races. But we appreciate Chris for joining us. We're definitely having you back on. You're always welcome to come on anytime. Neil, you already know. You're pretty much just have a reservation on this show.
I got some. I haven't got the cup race yet. I'll take a drink there. I was getting kind of winded there, but
Oh, you had cut out a little bit on us.
Yeah,
Oh,
keep
I'm
going.
sorry.
Yeah, keep
No,
going.
I'm sorry. No, I sorry. I had to take a sip there. But the Sunday race was nice. It kind of started off with a topic I was going to mention last week, but I decided to wait till this week because it kind of happened. It was easier for me to address personally instead of having Chet try to read it and maybe mess some of this up. It's kind of it's just more
Chet
of a
is
personal
no
thing.
NASCAR expert.
No, but it's kind of on the sadder kind of side. Some news that broke last Sunday. The passing of Sherry Pollux. She was a big time voice in the garage. She had cancer she had cancer 4 different times and got through it, and she passed away last Sunday. And the teams this week they started the race with a moment of silence for her. Every car had a ribbon sticker on the side of their car. It's kind of a sad thing. She did a lot of charity work. She was partners with Mark Truex Jr., my favorite driver, a long time. And part of what got me to be a fan of his was a ESPN piece on the two of them during COVID. I was like, kind of like, okay, that's a cool kind of story. And so that was a nice story. The moment of silence, they kind of honored her in a very respectful way. And it was beautiful to see them take us out with the steers and stuff. But as a whole, the Sunday race started pretty clean. Bo Wallace was the pole sitter and led the entire first stage. We had some green flag stops, which was cool to see. I was sitting at the entrance of pit road where I could see a couple stops, and Brad K, my other favorite driver, stall was right in front of me. I was able to watch his stops and see, and I was on his channel most of the day just because again, his spotter is the same as the day before, and he's really smart and really good at talking. He actually talks a lot more than the other ones, so it's constant listening to something instead of hearing something every 20 minutes. But it was pretty good. We had a caution on lap 41 where Austin Dillon lost 2 wheels in turn 3 coming off his last stop. They didn't get the back wheels tight, and they came off when he got in the turn, which was wild to see. I was like, okay, that's interesting. He was kind of not in a pack there, and you see him sliding around the back. I was like, oh, okay. Then I couldn't really see, and then the rest of the stage was kind of pretty good. However, on the restart of that stage, the 10 and the 48 wrecking turn 2. They were pushing. They went 3 wide. In turn 2 at Texas, it's funky. It's kind of lower banking than 3 and 4, and the bottom is really the only place you can run competitively. And they kept trying to go 3 wide, and I'm like, the wreck's going to happen. I knew watching the day before and knowing this track, it was going to be a bad day, and they got into a big wreck, and it was kind of brutal, and then luckily the rest of the stage kind of stayed clean until 7 to go. Kyle Busch blows a tire on the backstretch and does something kind of funny. He drove it in reverse all the way back to the pits around 3 and 4. It was just kind of funny. Like I look up, I'm like, that's kind of goofy. He was done for the day. He tore up enough stuff on the bottom of his car.
You think he was just doing it to blow off some steam after a lot of frustration?
Yeah, and he's
losing it there at the very end.
Yeah, and he's been on a tough streak. He's in the playoffs right now, but he's still had some awful luck. So it was kind of like that, And then, but it was nice though because it hadn't let enough. It created a 1-lap shootout for the stage, and we had some drivers decide to opt for the, for the kind of short pit, as they say, pit before the off cycle, whereas the guys who need the points went out for points, and it was kind of a cool kind of thing. But then after the green white checker came out for the end of stage 2. Going into 1, Truex gets a bad bump and wrecks under caution technically in turn 1 out and kind of ruined his day. He was running mid-pack and had some speed, but it damaged some underside of his cars. Kind of had a bad day. It was, but then stage 2 as the rest of and stage 3 was calm mostly. It was nothing really, really wild. The 99 had a bad spin off of 4 that landed in the grass, and I personally believe that he sat there waiting on a caution to help his teammate out, because he sat there, and the moment the caution came out, he drove away instead of they threw me stuck there. I'm like that's they should really have done something about that, because literally the moment the yellow came out, he fired up. I'm like okay, sure, you couldn't get it mowed and you were waiting for that caution to come out because obviously he couldn't sit there on the green. It's a very dangerous situation, It was. I mean, to me, I think it's a really boring race as a whole. It's one of those things. If I wasn't there, I probably would have flipped around some NFL games just because it's was not very good.
Hey, those weren't much better.
Yeah.
No, I'd heard the same thing. There was there was a thing on another late caution. Larson, who was the leader, and he dominated most of stage 3 on a late caution. He did a fake out, acted like he was going to pit, and ended up getting the guys behind him to actually go into pits, which I thought was an interesting kind of move to see unfold in front of me. I was like, oh, that's kind of some tracks you can't always do it because where the commitment line is, but he went in and pulled at the last second, and the guys behind him already committed and didn't realize what was going on. I do believe some of those guys probably would have stayed out, and then the very end of the race, I don't remember the lap number, but a big wreck happened coming off of 4 right in front of me, and the guy behind me got it on video, but he sent the video to me, and it was so bad in quality. I was like,
Neil, it looked like
realize,
gas station footage, man. It was just hard
dude,
to piece together the event.
I was kind of mad because it was like I went by myself, but I'm the kind of person I'll meet the people around me and have a good time. And there were some nice people all around me. I was talking to them. I offered them a beer. I give them a beer on Saturday. They give me a beer on Sunday, kind of thing. It's a good old people kind of thing, But it was good. But at the end of the race on another short run, Larson ends up getting in a wreck with Bubba Wallace in 1 and 2. Bubba was on the bottom line, Larson the high line, and Larson kind of gave him not enough room, and Larson ended up spinning out and wrecking, ending his day. They couldn't quite get it fixed after being fast for most of stage 2 and 3, and I was like, yeah, I figured he had a good shot to win, based on that alone. Then in the race, William Byron manages to get in the lead, pass the Bubba Wallace to the last run, and brings it home for Hendrick Motorsports. Gets them their 300th win, as I mentioned during the
dog of the week.
Dog of the week, yeah. It's that team. It's kind of funny. I saw a stat today that like of their 300 wins, like almost like 20% of them came from 2 people. Jeff Gordon ran for them for all his 5 championships, and then Jerry Johnson ran for them as well. So a good portion of the wins came from those 2 people, but still, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I got some young bucks coming up now, to replace those legends.
I mean, they got Chase Elliott, who's the perennial favorite. You got Kyle Larson, who's probably one of the best drivers. I want to say the world, just because he can hop into, in a given week, he may run a pavement late model, then get in a dirt sprint car on Thursday, then get a cup car on Sunday, and win all 3. Like the dude's just a pure racer and stuff. And I was like, oh. And then Byron, who's now that's I believe that's his 5th win of the year and stuff. And he was the points leader, and now he'll be the outright point leader after the reset now, because from Truex he was tied with him and stuff. Then the playoffs, we're on here, and I will say I now have to change my Final 4. I've now lost faith in Truex Jr. making it to the Final 4. He's had horrendous cars the last 4 races, and I think he's going to lose out this round.
Oh, man, that's tough for you.
Yeah, it's been so bad. I'm like, oh, but in the meantime, Brad Kay's been fast, so I've been happy with him. But right now, the point line right now for the thing, I got the wrong tab, but right now it's Wallace is -2, Reddick is -3, Blaney -11, and Kyle Busch -17, with Brad Kay starting to let the line out +8 going into Talladega, which is his best track by far. He's got the most wins there of anybody current and the second most all time behind the legendary Dale Sr. So I think this is a good chance for him to win. He's been fast on the mile and a half on the plate tracks this year with his teammate Buescher, and he's also the only playoff driver to not finish outside the top 10 all playoffs. The dude's been consistent. He hasn't gotten that win to break the win streak, but he's getting close. But my Final 4 are now William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, and I think Chris Buescher sneaks in there. It's kind of a dark horse. Not a lot of people think he'll make it past this round, but I think he has a good shot of making it to Phoenix. I guess 6 weeks, I guess, is when they head to Phoenix for the championship. It's gonna be fun.
Your expert opinion,
Oh yeah, and I will say something that came out today that I love, and I love it. The team's racing it. This week, Stewart Haas Racing announced the 41 car is being sponsored by Wonder Bread, and the 14 is being sponsored by Old Spice deodorant.
Oh, yes, I did see this. It's going to be Talladega Nights at Talladega.
Talladega Nights at Talladega. It got leaked kind of yesterday online where some Publix somewhere put out the Wonder Bread stanchions out, and someone saw the picture of it. But it's just kind of cool. Like somebody was saying that they need to get a Bush to agree to do some kind of sad clown malt liquor thing for Harvick, and they need to get Eric Amarola or somebody to do the me scheme like that just to make the full team with it. And they had a cool announcement. They changed their logo on social media to look like the race team's logos from the movie. They did a cool little video of it. It's kind of funny, and I love it.
Who's going to get to drive the Cougar car, though? Come on now.
That's what I'm saying. Someone should have, that should have, either Harvick or Amarillo do it. And I'm kind of like bummed Harvick's not doing it because I feel like he would have been, the old Grizzly vet to do it who's having a bad year. But I think it's hilarious. I love when these brands are on board for it. I think it's good for the sport. It's got you guys talking about it.
Brings other people into it.
I'm going to be driving home that day from Lubbock probably, so I'll be listening to it on the radio. But I'm still looking forward to it. I'll catch the highlights. And, it's Talladega, so it's going to be wild. I don't think either one of those cars will be anywhere near the front. But Chase Briscoe has said it. The 14 car said that he will be quoting the movie all day long just for giggles. So those in the stands there with the scanners will be. I think he'll get more traffic on his station this weekend than probably ever before just to hear the quotes from it. So it's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to it. We got 2 more races of this round. And this is the wild card round. We got Talladega, then the Roval at Charlotte in 2 weeks, which anybody can win that. Then we move on the round of 8. So, which I'll give you all another update here in a few weeks, I guess, for that once we get closer to the playoffs ending.
Yeah, definitely look forward to the upcoming races, and you're not going to get any of that insight anywhere else but here on the Sports Scramble podcast. So we appreciate our 2 guests joining. Chris, thanks for spending your Monday night with us. Wade, as always, thanks for joining with us. So that'll be it for us, a full menu of sports, and it's going to continue on both on Saturday and Sundays. So we appreciate everyone for spending your Monday night with us, and we will see you next time right back here.